Ladies and gentlemen, this is White Lightning 777, and I'm here to discuss the sociopath problem. Why do we insist on sleeping with monsters? Let's take an example. And I like Bukele, and I like what he's doing in El Salvador. But he put all these MS-13 people in prisons, in supermax jails to keep them off the street, and is playing head games with them and using psychological methods to somehow, break their spirit of resistance or whatever. The fact is, what happens when Bukele gets replaced by some limp-wristed leftist faggot of a leader that lets them all out? I mean, the answer is obvious. These people are a terrorist organization. They're in a gang. He should set up guillotines in that prison, and he should, like Pinochet and Franco, systematically capture and kill every gangster he gets. I mean, he has people in there that are leaders that have ordered hundreds of homicides, and yet none of them are being executed. What possible good is it to warehouse them, just waiting for them to get lucky and get back out again? Zero. Even in the United States, we have supermax prisons with people that are, so dangerous they can't even be physically touched. If somebody is that dangerous, what more do you need to know? Obviously, they should simply be executed. They should be killed. Firing squads work. No grave and criminals don't need graves. As far as I'm concerned, they should be fed into wood chippers and thrown into the trash like garbage, because they are garbage. Why do we have registered sex offenders just living out there? Now, a lot of these registered sex offenders are missing, and the authorities don't know where they are. At first that seems scary, but you have to remember that, sex offenders have victims, and they're missing because they've been made to disappear by members of the community. So that's not as much of a cause for concern. But why is it up to ordinary citizens to go around the law and operate at night, keeping a low profile, just to dispose of the trash? So you pay taxes to the police to take out the trash. They don't take out the trash. Then you have to buy your own guns and your own rope and your own whatever, and kill the pedophiles yourself and dump them yourself, and then risk not angering the government and paying. So you're essentially paying twice. We know sex offenders can't be cured. We know queerness is a mental illness. Why, if a queer hasn't yet raped a woman or a child, they should be in an institution. Why are we letting these monsters just run amok? There is no right. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have the right to be a raging, deranged psychotic. It doesn't. It doesn't say that. And failure to maintain mental hygiene can easily be defined as a crime, and people can be thrown in jail for that. And they should be. Why do we allow arsonists and mad bombers to live in a jail? You could make anything into a bomb. A person like that is never going to be safe in or out of an institution. They should be executed. We need to have a cleansing fire in the United States, and in fact, not just the United States, but the Western world as well. Murderers, rapists, sex offenders, drug dealers, pedophiles, arsonists, terrorists, communists, gang member, they need to be disposed of. What is the upside to letting such violent, deranged fools that are so terrifying that most people would run down the street screaming to get away from them if they identified them. What possible good is it to let them live? I mean, who here thinks that Dracula would make a good neighbor? I mean, really. And these leftoids, they literally would read their rights to Dracula. And the fact is, these people are stupid. Now, if you had, for example, let's say I don't know, they're saying jaguars are coming back into the United States. You know, they're walking up through Arizona, coming back in because they used to live here and now they haven't been hunted, so they're coming back. Well, if you spotted a jaguar near a school or a park, most people, even though there are there are only a few documented man-eaters among jaguars. There's maybe maybe less than half a dozen, reliable reports. And the black jaguars and the black cats that people are seeing in North America, there's not a single one of them that has ever attacked a human. But I guarantee you, if somebody saw a 50-pound black panther, and the jaguars that are coming back, they are black, they are melanistic. By the way, the reason for that is because a black cat that comes out at a moonless night is much harder to shoot with a gun than an ordinary colored cat. So human activity has probably selected for that coloration. That's why you have all these black cat reports. That's the reason why we've sort of, through firearms, we've sort of enforced evolution and bred them in that way. That's the most likely explanation if they exist. But if you saw a jaguar, a black cat in a playground, these people would call the police. They would send the SWAT team out. They would send them out to get them. But yet, while they're on the way to kill this jaguar, they're passing by. They would no doubt pass the homes of 10, 20, or 30 registered sex offenders and do nothing, even though these sex offenders are far more of a threat to children than a jaguar. Really. This isn't rational. Feelings aren't facts, so they're wrong. Why are we letting these monsters run amok? Responsible governments need to talk to people and have an adult conversation with the population. Listen, certain individuals, they got it coming, and they got to go away, and we have to dispose of them. And frankly, there are so many of these wild animals, that two-legged wild animal predators running around. Frankly, we obviously need a period of martial law for a year or two, so that way we could kill off several million of the most dangerous one of these predators. If you catch an MS-13 person, even there, why are you, Homan? I like Tom Homan. Why are you deporting them? If you catch them, put 2 shots in the back of their head and dump them. It's a hell of a lot cheaper. Why are gang members captured alive? They should be shot on sight. When Bonnie and Clyde were robbing banks, they were declared public enemies and shot on sight. Dillinger was declared a public enemy and shot on sight. That wasn't unconstitutional. Their behavior and obvious guilt justified that. Now, I'm not talking about ambiguous cases where you don't know if the guy did it or not, or there's shades of gray, or, rumors or allegations. Nobody should be shot or whatever because of a rumor. I'm talking about there are so many of these cases where these people are obvious guilty. These are open and shut, slam dunk cases where the guilt is overwhelming. And they've even been convicted on DNA evidence. And we're letting these monsters live. What is the upside to letting a monster live? What does having hundreds of registered sex offenders in Baltimore contribute to the safety of Baltimore, for example? Nothing. Or even there in Europe, you're letting in jihadis. You're letting in people that are barbarians, that are sympathetic with terrorists. What does letting in a bunch of barbarians contribute? Nothing. The fact is, we have to come. This leads to a very sober but pretty obvious conclusion. The leftists want to cause crime. The leftists want people committing sex offenses and murder. The leftists want serial killers. They want arsonists. They want terrorists. They want drug dealers. They are in favor of this. They believe that everybody's a carbon footprint. If you believe that people are a carbon footprint, then the only carbon positive people are the ones that are out there killing everyone else. So, of course, you'd want more of them. If that's yet the reason you have all of these monsters on the street is a direct consequence of people taking the global warming hoax, social contagion, seriously. And leftists push it. Leftists cause crime. The Democrats are the criminals, the people who actually commit the murders and the rapes and the robberies and the drug dealing. Those people are just accessories. They are doing what politicians want them to do. And for that, the people who are pro-crime, who aid and abet these criminals, they also need to be executed as well. There's no difference between putting a Unabomber onto the street so he can kill people and building the bomb yourself. All are guilty. And they should pay. Franco and Pinochet did nothing wrong. We must destroy all monsters. Otherwise, we will cease to exist as a republic and civilization will be destroyed. We have no choice. The Constitution is not a suicide pact. This is White Lightning 777 signing out. Long live the Republic.